Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to unpack something pretty amazing. Your emotions. Not just the feeling part,
Right.
but how they actually work inside your body.
Yeah.
We're diving into Candace Pert's book, Molecules of Emotion, which completely changed how we think about feelings. Get ready to discover that your emotions aren't just in your head. They have a real physical presence
It's true.
that impacts your health
And Pert's own journey
in some surprising way.
is a great place to start. She discovered the opiate receptor as a graduate student, which in the world of science is like striking gold. But as you'll see, the scientific world can be pretty competitive.
Yeah, Pert's book doesn't shy away from the drama. She even mentions her mentor, suggesting she read Machiavelli's The Prince after her discovery. Kind of makes you wonder if academic research is more like a Game of Thrones than a quest for knowledge, right?
That's a great point. Pert's story highlights how groundbreaking scientific discoveries often face an uphill battle for recognition. It's not always about the science itself, but also about navigating the politics and personalities within the research community. In fact, Pert later faced the Lasker Award controversy, which cast a shadow over who truly gets credit for scientific breakthroughs.
It's a good reminder that even in the world of science, things aren't always black and white. But let's get back to the groundbreaking science itself. Pert talks about these things called neuropeptides, and she calls them the molecules of emotion. Can you break that down for us? What are these molecules, and what do they have to do with how we feel?
Think of it like this. Your body has a complex communication system, kind of like a postal service. And neuropeptides are the mail carriers. They travel throughout your body carrying information, not just in the brain, but between the brain and all your organs.
So if these neuropeptides are delivering messages
Yeah.
all over the body, what are those messages exactly?
The messages are emotions. And just like a postal service needs mailboxes, your cells have receptors that act like little scanners. Each receptor recognizes and binds to a specific neuropeptide, like a key fitting into a lock. This triggers a chain reaction inside the cell, leading to all sorts of changes, from your heartbeat to your digestion to, yes, your emotions.
So if I'm getting this right, these tiny molecules are essentially orchestrating our feelings in every part of our body.
That's precisely what Pert's work revealed.
It's not just all happening in our heads.
She even used a technique called autoradiography to map where these receptors are concentrated in the brain. You might be surprised to learn that she found them clustered in areas associated not just with emotions, but also with things like pleasure, pain, and even how we experience the world through our senses.
Wow, so this research is basically saying that our feelings are way more complex and interconnected than we might have realized. It kind of challenges that traditional view of emotions solely originating in the brain, doesn't it?
You're absolutely right, and that's where a really interesting debate comes in, the James Cannon debate. Think about a time when you felt nervous, maybe before a big presentation.
Oh yeah, I know that feeling all too well.
Do you remember that feeling of butterflies in your stomach? Well, William James, a famous psychologist, believed that physical sensations, like those butterflies, actually come before the emotional experience. He argued that we feel emotions because our bodies react first, and that our brain interprets those physical changes as a specific emotion.
That's so interesting.
So in the case of those butterflies,
So it's not necessarily our thoughts that trigger our feelings,
your heart might start racing first.
but rather our bodies leading the way.
And then your brain goes, oh, I must be nervous. That was James's argument. And it was pretty radical for its time. Another prominent scientist, Walter Cannon, disagreed. He believed that the brain is the main player in emotions, processing information and triggering specific feelings.
So they had very different views on how emotions actually arise in the body.
Yeah.
Where does Candace Pert fit into all of this?
Pert's research on neuropeptides actually offered a whole new perspective on this debate. She found that these molecules of emotion aren't just in the brain, they're all over the body. This discovery lent support to James's argument that our bodies play an active role in creating emotional experiences.
So it's not a simple case of either the body or the brain being in charge.
Not just passively responding to the brain.
Pert's work suggests a much more intricate dance between the two.
Exactly. And that's why Pert championed the concept of the body-mind. She was basically saying that separating the body and the mind is an illusion. They're so interconnected that they really function as one integrated system.
Okay, I'm starting to see why this is also revolutionary. We'll be back in part 2 to explore how this interconnectedness actually plays out in terms of our health and well-being. But first, we've got to take a quick break.
We'll be back in a moment to continue our deep dive into molecules of emotion. Stay with us.
Expert. Welcome back to the deep dive. We're in the middle of exploring Candace Pert's Molecules of Emotion. And this whole idea that our bodies and minds
Right.
aren't separate entities,
Yeah.
but rather one deeply connected system, what Pert calls the body-mind.
And this connection has huge implications for how we understand our health. It's not just about our physical well-being, but also about how our emotions play a role.
So we're not just talking about the mind-body connection, some vague abstract sense. Pert's research suggests a much more concrete link between our feelings and our physical health, right?
And one of the most fascinating aspects of this is the role of neuropeptides in the immune system. Think back to that postal service analogy. Imagine that some of those neuropeptides are delivering messages to your immune cells, telling them how to respond to threats.
So our emotions are basically communicating directly with our immune system.
That's the idea. And this means that our emotional states, through those neuropeptide messengers, can have a direct impact on how well our immune system functions.
That's incredible. Are there any examples that really illustrate?
There's a fascinating experiment Pert talks about in her book that really highlights this. A researcher named Robert Ader was working with rats, and he conditioned them to associate a sweet taste with a drug that suppressed their immune system. Eventually, just the taste alone, even without the drug.
Whoa, so just the thought of something, an anticipated taste, could trigger a physical change in their immune system.
Was enough to weaken their immune response.
Amazing.
It's a powerful demonstration of how our mental and emotional states, through those neuropeptide messengers, can have a very real impact on our physiology.
Okay, so our emotions aren't just some fleeting feeling. They have a direct line to our immune system.
Yeah.
You know, it makes me wonder if things like stress and anxiety
That's a great question.
could actually make us more susceptible to getting sick.
And one that researchers are actively exploring. There's a growing body of evidence suggesting that chronic stress, for example, can weaken the immune system, making us more vulnerable to infections and other illnesses.
This is all pretty mind-blowing. It's like Pert's work is revealing this whole hidden world within us, a complex web of communication between our emotions, our immune system, and every cell in our body.
And that's just scratching the surface. Pert's research also explored the potential of neuropeptides for treating diseases. She was particularly interested in a molecule called peptide T.
Right, I remember reading about that. Didn't she face some roadblocks trying to get funding for clinical trials?
Which she believed held promise for treating AIDS and other conditions. She did. It's a common challenge for scientists who are pushing the boundaries of conventional thinking. Pert faced resistance from the scientific establishment, who were skeptical of her ideas.
So even with groundbreaking discoveries, there are often hurdles to overcome.
And hesitant to fund research that challenged the status quo.
It makes you realize how important it is for scientists to have the courage to pursue their ideas, even in the face of skepticism.
Absolutely, and Pert's story is a testament to that kind of courage. She didn't let the challenges deter her from exploring the incredible potential of neuropeptides and their role in health and disease.
So we've talked about how emotions impact our immune system and how neuropeptides could potentially be used to treat illnesses. But I'm also curious about what all of this means for our everyday lives. Does Pert offer any practical advice
She does.
based on her research?
In fact, Pert developed an 8-part program for healthy living.
That's great. It sounds like she's not just leaving us with
And it's all about integrating those mind-body principles we've been talking about.
a bunch of complex theories. She's actually giving us a roadmap for applying this knowledge to live healthier lives.
Into our daily routines, exactly.
And it all starts with paying attention to our emotions, not pushing them away or trying to ignore them. Pert believed that our emotions are valuable sources of information, like messengers telling us what our body and mind need. It's like those emotions are sending us signals, and Pert is saying, hey, listen up.
Exactly. For example, if you're constantly feeling stressed or overwhelmed, that's your body's way of telling you that something needs to change.
Okay, so instead of trying to suppress those emotions, we should actually get curious about them.
Maybe you need to reevaluate your priorities, set healthier boundaries, or find better ways to manage your stress.
What else does Pert suggest?
Well, she was a huge advocate for spending time in nature. She believed that connecting with the natural world is essential for our emotional and physical well-being.
That makes a lot of sense. I know I always feel more relaxed and grounded after spending time outdoors.
Right. It's like hitting the reset button on our nervous system. And it's something we can all incorporate into our lives, even if it's just a short walk in the park, or a few moments spent appreciating the beauty of a sunset.
So we've got tuning into our emotions and getting out into nature. What other gems does Pert offer in her program?
She also talks about the importance of nourishing our bodies. with healthy food and regular exercise. And of course, she emphasizes the potential harm of excessive drug use,
So it's about finding healthier ways
both legal and illegal.
to manage our emotions and cope with stress without relying on substances that could ultimately make things worse.
She saw drugs as a way of disrupting our natural biochemical balance
What about things like meditation? Does Pert touch on those?
and potentially leading to more problems down the road.
Absolutely. She was a big believer in the power of practices like meditation, yoga, or even deep breathing exercises
It's like she's giving us a whole toolbox for taking care of our emotional health.
to help calm the mind and promote emotional well-being. That's a great way to put it. And the final piece of the puzzle, according to Pert, is connecting with a sense of purpose or spirituality.
I love that. It's about finding that spark that makes life feel worth living.
She believed that having a sense of meaning and connection to something bigger than ourselves
Whether it's through our work, our relationships, our creative pursuits, or our spiritual beliefs.
was essential for living a truly fulfilling life. It sounds like Pert's program is really a holistic approach to well-being, recognizing that our physical, emotional, and even spiritual selves are all intertwined.
You got it. And we'll be back in part 3 to wrap up our exploration of Pert's groundbreaking work and the profound implications it has for how we understand ourselves and the world around us.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We've been exploring Candace Pert's book, Molecules of Emotion, and how it revolutionized our understanding of the link
Right.
between our feelings and our physical health.
And if you're like most people, you're probably wondering what all this fascinating science means for you. How can you actually use this knowledge?
Well, you're in luck to live a healthier, happier life.
Because Pert lays out an 8-part program in her book that's essentially a guide for integrating these mind-body principles into your daily life.
It's a practical roadmap for putting all this incredible science into action. And it all starts with...
But it all starts with something you're already doing, feeling emotions.
That's right.
Yeah.
But instead of ignoring or suppressing those feelings, Pert encourages us to really tune into them, to see them as valuable messengers.
Think of it this way. Your emotions are like a feedback system, constantly providing you with information about what's going on inside your body and mind. If you're feeling stressed, anxious, or even joyful, your body is trying to tell you something.
So it's not about trying to get rid of those so-called negative emotions. It's about understanding what they're trying to communicate. What are some practical ways we can do that?
One simple practice is to start noticing your emotions throughout the day. When you feel a strong emotion, take a moment to pause and ask yourself, what's going on here? What might this feeling be telling me? Maybe you're feeling overwhelmed because you've taken on too much.
It's about getting curious
Yeah.
about our emotional landscape instead of just reacting automatically.
Or maybe you're feeling resentful because a boundary has been crossed.
And once we start tuning into those signals, what can we do with that information?
Well, that's where the rest of Pert's 8-part program comes in. She offers a variety of tools and techniques for addressing those underlying needs
So it's not just about understanding our emotions, it's about taking action.
and creating a more balanced and fulfilling life.
What are some of the key action steps Pert recommends?
One of her biggest pieces of advice is to spend time in nature. She believed that connecting with the natural world is essential for our emotional and physical well-being.
I can definitely relate to that. Whenever I'm feeling stressed or overwhelmed, I find that a walk in the park or a hike in the woods can do wonders for my mood.
It's like nature has this incredible ability to soothe our nervous systems and bring us back into balance. And it doesn't have to be anything elaborate. Even just a few minutes spent gardening, listening to the birds sing, or watching the clouds drift by can have a profound impact.
So we've got tuning into our emotions and connecting with nature. What else is on Pert's list?
She also emphasizes the importance of taking care of our physical bodies through things like healthy eating, regular exercise, and getting enough sleep.
It's like Pert is saying,
Yeah,
that our physical health and our emotional health are two sides of the same coin.
exactly. And she also cautioned against relying too heavily on drugs, both legal and illegal, to manage our emotions.
So it's about finding healthier coping mechanisms, like those nature walks or those deep breathing exercises we talked about earlier.
She saw them as a way of disrupting our natural biochemical balance and potentially creating more problems in the long run.
Right. And this leads to another key element of Pert's program, stress reduction techniques. She was a big believer in practices like meditation, yoga, or even just taking a few moments to focus on your breath. These are all practices that help us calm our minds
Exactly.
and cultivate a sense of inner peace.
And the final piece of the puzzle, according to Pert, is finding a sense of purpose or meaning in life.
Whether it's through our work, our relationships, our creative pursuits, or our spiritual beliefs.
She believed that having a connection to something bigger than ourselves was essential for true happiness and fulfillment.
Finding that sense of purpose can give our lives direction and meaning.
Right, it's about connecting with that spark that makes you feel truly alive, and I think Pert's own life is a beautiful example of that.
It's inspiring to see how she lived out her own philosophy. And it gives me hope that we can all tap into that same sense of purpose.
Her passion for understanding the mysteries of the body-mind fueled her groundbreaking research.
And make a positive impact on the world.
And ultimately led to her incredible discoveries.
I agree. And as we wrap up this deep dive,
I want to leave you with one final thought. Pert's work has opened up a whole new world of understanding about the interconnectedness of our bodies, minds, and spirits. Take this knowledge and use it to empower yourself. Listen to your body, honor your emotions, and live a life that is both meaningful and fulfilling.
Beautifully said. And remember, this is just the beginning of your exploration. Keep questioning, keep learning, and keep diving deep into the fascinating world around you. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive. Until next time.